Aaron Rodgers has spoken out on his future with the New York Jets, and it seems as if he wants to stay, which could change everything for the Jets, as it does not seem like Woody Johnson is a big fan of Aaron Rodgers. So we're going to jump right into this. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Jets Digest. It's Chris and Matt here, and we're going to jump right into things as always, so make sure to subscribe if you like the content. 17.5% of viewers are subscribed. It's the season of giving. Give us your subscription, or I'll be forced to throw a toaster in Matt's bathtub. But let's jump into this and talk about what Aaron Rodgers had to say. And Aaron Rodgers said, "I just redid my house here in Jersey. My goal was to play a few more years here. I'd like to play well, and I feel like I'm wanted back. If not, I will not be offended. I won't be upset." So, of all this time, Matt, of Aaron Rodgers just saying a lot of preposterous things, which often sounds very interesting, like the whole eating pie thing a few weeks ago, and all the other insane stuff that Aaron Rodgers has said over the course of his life. Aaron Rodgers, very normal comments, seemingly wants to actually come back to the Jets is my read on this, and obviously it's not a bad thing if he comes back to the Jets. The other quarterbacks available are guys like Justin Fields and Jameis Winston outside of rookies, and it's not an exactly enticing rookie class, and with the Jets going to be losing DJ Reed, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if they went for a defensive back or something like that in the draft instead of a quarterback, when next year's quarterback class in 2026 is going to be much better. So it becomes this situation of, would you want Aaron Rodgers back for another year? We've talked about this a lot. I'm in favor of it, because it means you get one more chance to try to do this thing. And if it doesn't work anyway, you could go and you could draft a quarterback at a high draft pick. So I feel like your best bet is running things back. But Aaron Rodgers saying this, it does kind of surprise me. From where I'm sitting, I would imagine Aaron Rodgers is going to play in the NFL next year, but I do not think it's going to be with the Jets.
So Aaron Rodgers has not looked good this year. It's no surprise. But looking at what the other options would be potentially for next year, he definitely seems like one of the better options, because they're still stuck with Allen Lazard. They would have Devontae Adams coming back on a reasonable contract should Aaron Rodgers hang around. So I really think the Jets still have a good roster. If they can get the right coach, I think it makes a ton of sense for Aaron Rodgers to try a redo and try to see if they can get this thing going correctly. Not having a head coach is sinking this team, and I really feel like this roster could do a whole lot better if they did have a real head coach. Aaron Rodgers, the one thing, this quote doesn't necessarily lock him into staying, because just because he redid his house in New Jersey, that doesn't mean he's going to stay with the Jets. This man has made over $380 million in his NFL career. He could buy a house on the moon if he wants. He can buy a house. He can redo my house, your house, and then kick us both out of our houses, buy us new ones.
I live in an apartment, actually.
Not anymore. Not in this scenario, you don't. So Aaron Rodgers, if he comes back, is he going to play like MVP Aaron Rodgers? That was the question coming into this season. No, he's not going to do that. That's been answered. We know he doesn't have that in his game anymore. But what he does have is he's a guy who has still a high-level NFL mind, who knows how to process situations correctly. And if there's a head coach around him who doesn't just say yes to him and is able to actually implement Aaron Rodgers into a real offensive scheme instead of just letting him do whatever he wants like he's playing Madden, then maybe the offense could actually look a lot better. We know we're going to have a good left tackle next year. We're going to have an elite wide receiver in Garrett Wilson. If Aaron Rodgers is back, we'd have Devontae as well. We would potentially, another strong positional group in this draft class is going to be tight ends. So we could potentially hit the tight end group in the second round of the NFL draft this year, improve on Tyler Conklin, who's still a solid player. He's not a good run blocking tight end, but he's a good tight end overall. And you can improve this offense even more. And of course, important, got to get the play caller right. Todd Downing is not the worst thing in the world. You know, we've seen a lot of really, really, really poor Jets offenses. Todd Downing is not the worst thing in the world when it comes to offensive play calling, but he's definitely not anything close to the solution. He's not going to take the Jets to the playoffs or playoff games. We need to improve the defense. We got to bring in some guys who can tackle. Got to bring in a coach who can. The number one thing, we're going to keep saying it, the coach needs to bring in his own culture, and the coach needs to bring the locker room together. Right now it's a roster of players, but it's not actually a team. No one plays for each other. They don't play together. And these little mistakes are just sinking the entire ship, the entire team. They're like a boat and every player just takes a little turn, drilling a hole in the bottom of the boat, and eventually enough water fills up and just sinks them. Every single week it happens. It's just whether it's a false start here or a delay of game there or a missed field goal every single week, there always seems to be just that little error that makes the Jets lose. And after the game, you're never thinking like, oh, like that was such a bad mistake by Greg Zuerlein. That was such a bad false start by Tyron Smith. Oh man, how are we going to delay a game there of all times? It's all like, you're like, okay, that's an okay mistake. That's an okay mistake. And you kind of let it slide, but the losses are adding up. So it's just not okay anymore. Got to get the little mistakes under control. You look at the Patriots dynasty, their motto the whole way was do your job. They made sure they got all the little things right. And with their Hall of Fame MVP level quarterback, everything else just kind of fell into place correctly. So if we can get all the little things correct around Aaron Rodgers, I do believe that he could potentially take this team to the playoffs next year. I'm not saying they're going to be a Super Bowl contender because I don't think there's any quarterback out in the free agency, NFL draft, trade market other than Chris Gallagher who could take the Jets to a Super Bowl. But Aaron Rodgers is most likely the best of a bad situation. However, I would really like to hear what people think in the comment section, what quarterback they want for next year.
Yeah, I'm curious, and I know we're going to see the Jordan Travis comments. I just have to jump right ahead on that. Yes, Jordan Travis is going to be an option. I would give it maybe a 2% chance that he's the starting quarterback next year. Could I see him being the backup quarterback? Absolutely. I also could see Tyrod Taylor coming back and being the backup quarterback again. I think it fully depends on whoever the hell the Jets' starting quarterback is. I think if it's Aaron Rodgers, it'll probably be Tyrod Taylor. I think if it's Justin Fields, it'll probably be Tyrod Taylor. Outside of that, I could see Tyrod just also saying, no, I'd rather be a backup on a team where it's a little more, where things are a little more certain. And I mean, a team that comes to mind is the Buffalo Bills. Could always just go after him and kind of have him as their backup as they continue to compete for a Super Bowl, as he did them right for a lot of years and was their quarterback when they finally made the playoffs again. And it becomes this thing looking at the New York Jets of, as you said, Aaron Rodgers is the best of a bad situation. Is he some terrible quarterback? Absolutely not. He's just not Aaron Rodgers anymore. And the Jets don't need a Super Bowl quarterback. They need competence. And it's not on Rodgers that they're lacking competence. Now, yes, he's not had a great season, but he hasn't had a bad season. It's one of the better seasons for any Jets quarterback, unfortunately. Today, I learned that Aaron Rodgers' middle name is Charles, so that's interesting. And in 12 games this season, his completion percentage has been 3%, really 2.5% down than what it usually is. His yards per average has gone down. His touchdowns are not going to be the average of what he gets. The interceptions are around the same. He's not a guy who throws a ton of picks. He never has been. And frankly, it's not that he's this awful, awful quarterback. He's just not the guy who was on the Packers 3 years ago, 2 years ago even. Like, it's just a different Aaron Rodgers now. He's gotten older. When people get older, they usually get worse. And that's the case with Aaron Rodgers, is we've just seen that more. And frankly, I think when it comes down to Rodgers, there's just so much that has to go right with the New York Jets for them to be a playoff team with Rodgers. And a lot of it does fall on his mindset. Obviously, the Jets were a wreck this year, and you cannot pin that on Aaron Rodgers. Did he help the situation? No. But even if the Packers were a wreck in a random season, I don't think, outside of the fact that he was, in his prime, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to help the situation off the field that much. Yes, on the field he's going to, but off the field he's not some massive voice in the locker room, and he doesn't have to be. That's not his job. It's just better if your quarterback is that. But not all quarterbacks are, and a lot of them are still successful, including Rodgers throughout his career. And Rodgers even spoke on the rest of this season, and he said something that to me makes me feel like if he comes back next year, we could see a locked-in version of Aaron Rodgers if this is a competent team that Woody Johnson isn't just dipping his hands in and firing head coaches 5 weeks in and all that stuff. I mean, Rodgers was asked about playing out the rest of this season and said about potentially being benched. I think it's ridiculous. With all due respect, if they want me to stay, fantastic. If it takes these 5 games, maybe they don't know what I bring to the table. But that being said, I'd love to play really friggin' well these last 5 games. Aaron Rodgers has turned around and has given good comments, and he probably knows that he has to, because for so long, for basically his entire career as a starting quarterback, Aaron Rodgers you never had to doubt if he was a great option. He was just that good. He's such an insane talent in this sport, and now it's kind of slipping, and that has obviously maybe caused some concern to Rodgers, where he wants to be a bit more grounded in his comments, or maybe it's just he hates the way this season's gone. I mean, look, if you get as good at a professional sport as Aaron Rodgers has been at football, there's no doubt that you are a competitive psychopath. That this does not happen naturally. If you become one of the greatest of all time at anything you do, no matter what it is, as long as it's not some like weird natural talent, if it's something that you, like a professional athlete, for instance, if you become the GOAT or one of the greatest to ever do it, you are going to be a competitive psychopath. Aaron Rodgers is that. You get him to lock in, and you get him to have comments like this where it's like, oh, if they don't trust me, let me play out these 5 games real well so they know going into next season, I still got it. Maybe I'm not an MVP anymore, but I still damn well can hold it down better than anyone else you can go out there and get. If you want to make the playoffs next season, you need me, and you cannot win without me. He has to do that Jimmy Butler thing that Jimmy Butler did in that practice with Minnesota when there was doubts about him. Go in there, show everyone up, and let everyone know that the New York Jets need you and that they cannot win without you. Rodgers has been unable to do that thus far in his time with the New York Jets, outside of the first year where obviously they would have been better if Rodgers was the quarterback. And, I mean, 6-win season. The Jets might not even get there this year with a easily better roster on paper. And it becomes this situation of, is Aaron Rodgers going to be able to still be the guy who, even if he wants to say something weird or drink a bunch of ayahuasca or something at random points, you can trust he's going to go out there and he's going to help you win football games. I don't really blame Aaron Rodgers a lot for this season. I find it hard to blame him. I understand he's been worse, but the team should not be 3-9. Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than a 3-9 record. The defense is better than a 3-9 defense. I blame Woody Johnson. I blame really just Woody Johnson for sticking his hands way too deep into this team. I think most Jets fans feel somewhat similar. So I've been biased towards Aaron Rodgers because I was a huge fan of him when he was on the Packers, because I just find him entertaining. He's one of the most entertaining football players to watch. So, or he was in his prime. So maybe I'm biased. I would rather see Aaron Rodgers back, because you're not getting a guy who's better than Aaron Rodgers in free agency or in the draft.
Do you think he can change people's minds in 5 games here?
I think he has the opportunity, considering this is exactly when the Jets are playing their best
we
football.
know he has the opportunity. The question I ask is, do you think, after what we've seen through 12 games or 13 games, whatever it's been, what you've seen so far from Aaron Rodgers, do you believe that he's going to go out in these last 5 games and show people that he deserves to be back?
I honestly think he might. If he's locked in and motivated to this level and knows he's playing for his career, I mean, there's a world where he just gives it all he's got, which might not be a good thing if he but he's not going to destroy his body in 5 extra games this season. That'll have some massive effect on next season. I think what Rodgers will show throughout the rest of this year, because he's not going to get benched. They're not going to bench him for Tyrod Taylor. They'd only bench him for Travis, who's not going to be able to play this season. So I think with Rodgers knowing that his future is a massive question mark on both ends between him and the Jets, which has never been really the case outside of the end of that Packers time when it was Jordan Love's time and the Packers saw they were going in a different direction and maybe not absolute contenders. Rodgers' future has never been in this much of a question mark, and it seems like he still wants to play in the NFL. I think Rodgers is going to have a good stretch here. I think the Jets are going to play, unfortunately, better than expected, and they'll probably get to like 6 wins, which will screw up draft positioning, but it might show something that'll give Jets fans and the New York Jets hope that you have a quarterback for next season who's competent.
All right, we'll see. We got 2 weeks. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's an important game when it comes to the first overall pick. So we're going to see how many wins they can collect here, and that's definitely going to help clear the air and help give us a better picture of who's going to be our quarterback for next year. Because if the Jets lose out a bunch of games right now, we're going to be looking at Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders most likely. Woody Johnson is going to hire a GM who is convinced that one of those guys are the answer. I don't think either one of those guys are the answer, but we will see. Well, they might be able to be able to be the answer, but I promise you, if you take one of those top elite players in this draft and then wait one more year, just wait one extra year. I know it's been 14 years. but one extra year for an Arch Manning and Nico Iamaleava, or what I think is going to be the third pick in 2026, Drew Aller, I really think one of those guys could actually give the Jets the ceiling. That could be a quarterback with the ceiling of like a Joe Burrow type of player instead of a guy with the ceiling of like a Baker Mayfield. Because Baker's a good quarterback. He's a good quarterback. He's just not elite. I would say a little bit better than Jared Goff.
That's the type
of ceiling. That's the type of ceiling that you're looking for out of a player like a Shadur Sanders or a Cam Ward. They're like, maybe you could argue Cam Ward's ceiling is a little bit higher, but the turnover problem usually does not get solved in the NFL. Sam Darnold's playing like what I've heard is like an MVP candidate. I don't really believe in that. I don't believe that must be true. I would love it if it was, but he is still turning the ball over at a pretty high rate. And that's what is like his number one knock coming out of USC, and he never got over that either. Jameis Winston, we saw Monday night, 2 pick sixes, and that cost his team the game. So these quarterbacks, they might be talented, but even these guys that are drafted, Sam Darnold, 3rd overall, Jameis Winston, 1st overall, the quarterbacks that have turnover problems coming out of school, they don't usually overcome that. Josh Allen overcame that, but I think Josh Allen, it was kind of a different
anomaly.
Yeah, no, not an anomaly. He was just different because he had to learn everything. It wasn't just do what you do, but stop turning the ball over. It was, you got to learn how to play quarterback.
Yeah. Well, he did that. And also my editor is advising me to end this video. And by my editor, I mean my computer's at 12%. So guys, make sure to like this video, subscribe, turn on post notifications. Have a great day and go Jets.